Have you ever seen those old black and white photos from the mid-20th century? Crowds flooding the streets, flags waving high, pure, unfiltered joy on every face. These are the images of independence, the moment a nation is born or reborn. It feels like the ultimate victory, the final chapter of a long, hard struggle against colonial rule. The air is thick with hope, with promises of a brighter future, a destiny finally in their own hands. It's a powerful, intoxicating moment. But what happens after the confetti settles and the crowds go home? What comes after happily ever after? The story, it turns out, is far more complex than that single, triumphant day. Independence isn't an event. It's the beginning of a long, often difficult, journey. Let's rewind. The colonial project was, at its core, a system of extraction. Resources, labor, wealth, all funneled from the colony to the metropole. To make this system work, colonial powers built infrastructure, but it was designed for their benefit. Railways ran from inland mines to coastal ports, not to connect local communities. Education systems were established, but often just to train a small class of local administrators to help run the colony. Healthcare was introduced, but primarily to keep the colonial workforce healthy enough to be productive. The entire structure of society was re-engineered not for the well-being of the local population, but for the efficiency of the colonial machine. Social hierarchies were often manipulated, creating divisions or elevating certain groups over others to make rule easier, a classic strategy of divide and conquer. This wasn't just about drawing lines on a map, it was about fundamentally reshaping societies from the inside out. Then came the scramble for Africa in the late 19th century, a moment that perfectly illustrates the arbitrary nature of colonial rule. European leaders gathered in Berlin, armed with maps and rulers, and carved up an entire continent without any regard for the people who actually lived there. Ancient kingdoms were split in two, rival ethnic groups were forced into a single administrative unit, and nomadic peoples found their traditional roots blocked by new, artificial borders. Imagine waking up one day to find that your cousin's village is now in another country, or that you now expected to share a national identity with a group you've been in conflict with for generations. These weren't just lines on paper, they were seeds of future conflict, time bombs set to go off decades later. The very foundations of these future nations were built on a logic that was completely alien to them. So, when independence finally arrived, these new nations inherited a state, but it was a hollow one. They had a flag, an anthem, and a seat at the United Nations, but the institutions were fragile, designed for control, not for governance. The civil service, the army, the judiciary, they were all built on a colonial model. The economy was still wired for extraction, heavily dependent on exporting a few raw materials to the former colonial power. This created a situation called neocolonialism, a more subtle form of control. Political independence was achieved, but economic independence was a distant dream. The prices for their coffee, cocoa, or copper were still being set in London or Paris. The loans they needed for development came with strings attached, often perpetuating the cycle of dependence. They were technically free, but were they truly sovereign? This is where the real struggle began. Building a nation from scratch is a monumental task. You have to create a shared national identity among diverse groups who are artificially thrown together. You have to build an economy that serves your own people, not just foreign markets. You have to reform institutions to make them democratic, inclusive, and just. And you have to do all of this while dealing with the scars of the past, the ethnic tensions exacerbated by colonial policies, the psychological wounds of subjugation, and the crushing weight of economic expectation. It's like being given the keys to a house, but the foundation is cracked, the plumbing is all wrong, and the previous owner still holds the mortgage. We see the consequences of this legacy playing out all over the world today. Many of the civil wars and political instabilities in post-colonial nations can be traced back to those artificial borders and the divide and rule tactics of the past. Economic struggles and persistent poverty often linked to the neocolonial structures that keep these nations in a state of dependency. The challenge is immense. It's a fight against history, against global economic structures, and sometimes against internal divisions that were planted long ago. But this isn't a story of failure. It's a story of incredible resilience. Across the globe, we see people working tirelessly to overcome this legacy. We see movements for true economic sovereignty, pushing for fair trade and local industrialization. We see artists, writers, and musicians reclaiming their cultural narratives, telling their own stories after centuries of being silenced or misrepresented. We see political activists and everyday citizens fighting for genuine democracy, for institutions that are transparent, accountable, and serve all people equally. They are building new roads, not just from mine to port, but from village to village, connecting their own people. They are writing new textbooks that tell their own history from their own perspective. This process is slow, uneven, and filled with setbacks. There are no easy answers or quick fixes, but it's a profound reminder that true independence is not a gift given on a single day. It is something that must be built, generation by generation. It's about decolonizing not just the land, but the mind. It's about dismantling the old, extractive systems and building new, inclusive ones in their place. It is about moving from being the subject of someone else's story to becoming the author of your own. The journey from the initial joy of independence to the hard-won reality of true freedom is long, but it's a journey that defines the modern world. It's a testament to the enduring human spirit and the unyielding quest for dignity and self-determination. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the forces that shape our world. See you in the next one.